Today, I chatted with someone who has, over the last number of years, gone from an acquaintance to one of my closest friends. I first got to know Matt Koenig through the game of basketball. I trained with him for an off season. We almost started a business together, and now he's truly found his purpose in life through Alliance Athletics. He'll explain more about it in our conversation, but a summary of his summary. Alliance is a community dedicated to the long term potential of athletes through collaboration. For me personally, he has been a great test dummy for my own theories when it comes to player development, a mentor in regards to the initial stages of starting a business, and an older brother of sorts that has helped me become a more confident and centered person in who I am. I say it multiple times throughout the conversation, but I am truly grateful to have Matt in my life. Here is a conversation with Matt Koenig. And now I am joined with Matthew Koenig, the founder of Alliance Athletics. Matthew, how are you today?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. It's a good, nice Sunday afternoon. Did some landscaping work in like 18-degree weather in November. Can't complain about that.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I rode my bike outside today, which is pretty good to say for middle of November.
Can't complain about the weather. For the
Yeah.
odd person who doesn't know what Alliance Athletics is, would you care to give the kind of the elevator pitch, the Coles Note version of what you do?
Of course. Yeah. So, Alliance Athletics is a coaching service, an online coaching service that we focus on balancing out the body and being able to handle all the forces and rigors that just general public experience with their body, but also we really cater towards and focus towards athletes. And then within that, the way that we deliver our programming and the way that we sort of go about coaching in Alliance Athletics is we give the tools to all of our members so that they have the autonomy to essentially train themselves and train from anywhere.
Mm,
So a lot of times there's a lot of restrictions, especially now with gyms being closed, equipment being hard to come by. Now with the weather getting colder, a lot of people don't really know what to do, or they might not have direction, or they might not even understand why their body is feeling
mm,
the way that it is. So we really
yeah.
try to that sort of um, give people that awareness of their body and how to work through those issues and how to achieve their potential long term.
Yeah, like the ability to coach themselves, pretty much.
Exactly. Which is like different. It's a different approach compared to how many in the industry tend to go about things. A lot of the strength coaches, trainers, whatever you want to call them, even educators, they kind of withhold some of that information
Mm.
so that you always have to keep coming back to them. And we really want to sort of break out of that mold and do it a different way.
And one ways that I know that we kind of collaborate in this is the idea behind Alliance was bringing a community of people to bring different aspects of different skills,
Yeah,
different sports, different backgrounds. You want to touch on that just a little bit?
definitely. So like growing up as like a multi-sport athlete, I learned like really early that when you take some time off of your main sport or just the movement patterns that you tend to be doing repeatedly, um, it tends to pay dividends in the long term
Mm,
in terms of not getting injured, just feeling better, but also, and this is what we're really tapping into is you actually pick up different skills and perspectives, and then it makes your sport specific training now even better
mm,
when you have the perspectives of other athletes, other sports, or just other experiences in general, right? So we really focus on trying to not cater to a lot of different types of athletes and different types of individuals, but just provide value that can be applied to a lot of different sports and walks of life. And then that way, what happens is the people that come into our program and join our community, um, really bring a new perspective each time. And even if it's like, oh, like this exercise really felt good for me, we can kind of draw it back to um, for example, that might be like a throwing athlete that like really enjoys like an external rotation of their shoulder joint, for example.
mm.
And we can sort of, just get a bigger, more whole view, I guess, of what we can do to help people.
And the one of the things that I found, for at least in our previous conversations, is the fact that you're trying to set people up for success, not just like, oh, I want to make my team or I want to perform better next season, but a lot of it's catered towards you want the athlete to live better. You want them to move better and into like well into the future. Taking long-term development into focus. How does that manifest in terms of maybe specifics of the programming, and then just kind of more an overarching theme of the program?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great question. Like so in terms of our programming, we really focus on our key sort of flagship program is actually just called Foundations. And it's exactly what it is. So we just focus on building that ground level or that base level functionality and just really building a foundation of which then you can build on after. And so helping people understand what they can do to balance their body, feel better, move better, just really sets them up for long-term success. Everything that you do after you balance out your body and, really improve the health of your body, you're going to get more benefits from everything else that you would do after it. For example, someone who has, structurally balanced feet, healthy knees, mobile hips, strong mobile back, is going to respond better to something like plyometrics. So today, for example, I did, some barefoot bounding exercises on a turf outside. If I were to do that, let's say a year ago, before I really balanced my body and strengthened my feet in relation to my hips and my larger muscles, that would have really, run me into the ground. I would have been sore and tired, and I would have had, some aches and pains to deal with. Whereas now I feel better than when I showed up to the turf. So it just really sets you up so that every stimulus you give your body after that is actually going to build you up rather than break you down.
Beautiful. And I know I've seen the balancing aspect in person by just the fact of dunking with both hands, now dunking with both feet. It's pretty impressive to watch, like, as a spectator and someone who eventually at some point will join you in that club. Maybe.
Yes, sir. You got to speak it into existence. Honestly, that's like it's. I find like I struggled with this for some time. It's like I still do. It's like sometimes you almost like once you speak it into existence and you say this is what I'm going to do, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. That's when you really unlock. That's when it's actually going to happen because you don't give yourself an out. But yeah, like taking the long-term approach, we can get you there.
And that's actually a perfect segue, because one of the things that I've really valued in our relationship over the last, call it year and a half, is viewing you as, you're someone who's a few more years down your kind of personal development path, your professional path. And I know from previous conversations, you spoke about the importance of, you moved away, you've traveled. What did that do in terms of maybe a starting point for becoming kind of the confidence-centered young man that you are now?
First of all, appreciate that. Thanks, bro. But moving away, just sort of uprooting myself out of the situation that I was in before I moved away. I really can't speak enough about how much that really grounded and centered me. So what happens when you take that leap, and like I've traveled in the past, and I've worked in different places, and I've moved around a little bit in terms of just like short-term traveling. It doesn't necessarily have the same effect. But when you uproot yourself and you pull yourself out of the situation you're in and root somewhere else for a period of time, even if it's just for a month. I ended up doing about 9 or 10 months. What happens is that none of the social pressures and all of the sort of anxieties that we run into nowadays really seem to affect you anymore, because and this is all in my experience, obviously. But what I found is that taking myself out of my environment, everything I did on a day-to-day basis was because I wanted to do it and I felt good about doing it. Whereas if you never take that chance or you never take that opportunity to do that, not saying it's always going to happen, but I found myself in a position where I was doing stuff. I was giving people time because they wanted it from me, not because I wanted to. And so I had a lot of different things that were going on in my life that I realized once I moved away that weren't actually serving me and weren't actually pushing me forward. And obviously when I moved away, I had a good time and I went with some friends. And so it was a really good experience, just personally too, and really refreshing. But I really found that, like I said, everything that I wanted to do was because I wanted to do it. And so it helped me find purpose and it helped me find direction and it helped me find clarity in my vision and what I really wanted to do. And it was truly life-changing. When I came back, I took some time just to kind of hang out and collect my thoughts. And then ever since that point, I've never been more, and like this is obviously the focus has gone up and down, but I've never been so had such sustained focus for such an amount of time since I moved away. And also another benefit is that I can't talk enough about is just being able to live with less. Because when you move away, I don't have all the amenities, right? I didn't have a car. I didn't have my support system. I had some support system because we went with some friends, obviously, but your sort of bubble, you take yourself out of there and you learn to live with less. You learn to save some money and you learn to really live below your means. I find myself being a lot less materialistic now than not saying I was really materialistic before. I don't think I was, but I'm definitely a lot less materialistic than I was before I went away. And I think that just goes back into like the sort of clear vision of what you really want.
Yeah. And something you touched on, it cannot come up a few times in that last comment, was about doing things because you wanted to do them. And I know society puts a negative connotation towards the word selfish. But it sounds like by being more selfish, it's allowed you to give more to other people.
Mm-hmm. I would say so for sure. You can't help yourself or you can't help others before you help yourself. So in order to give to others, you have to have a full cup. If your cup is empty, then you have nothing really to give. So I really found that that helped me as well, sort of giving me perspective and giving me direction and really just being more selfish with my time exactly as I came back. And you're going to lose some relationships and I definitely did, moving away and coming back, and because you go through a change, but also you're just away. But at the same time, those relationships and those situations that you value and that are right for you, they tend to stick around. And it was really eye-opening how little actually changed when I came back.
Yeah. And then the other thing that came up in that was just this sense of finding purpose, and that's obviously people our age, being kind of mid-20s, early 20s, something that is a very popular thing to talk about or to maybe almost like preach about. But if you had to sum up what you think your purpose would be or your why statement, do you kind of have something off the top of your head that you kind of resonate with?
I think to put it the most generally and the most simple is just to help people. I didn't have the most successful athletic career, definitely not the most linear and clear cut. So I really take pride and I really find purpose and meaningful work in helping people and giving them sort of that blueprint or that pathway that they can follow so that they can achieve what they want to achieve. Absolutely.
And that's been like I think for people that do listen and listened to a couple of these conversations I've had with people, it should kind of come back as a reoccurring theme that like these people that I think are doing really cool stuff, that's why I'm talking to them. They all kind of come back to the same fact as like in service to others, in doing something that you're yourself competent at, or you can at least teach. Like that's what kind of gets them up in the morning and allows them to weather the ebbs and flows of motivation, as you've said, that it's not a constant, like you're not always going to feel great every single day, but it allows you to push through kind of those lull times.
Absolutely. And like, you know, building consistency and sort of working through those waves of motivation that come and go. It's almost like the tide, like coming in and out. It's like you get these waves of motivation that you can sort of ride for a while, but then you definitely have some lulls in there as well. And so training yourself to sort of move through that and just have gratitude. Like a lot of the times I found when I was first starting out with sort of doing my own thing, starting my own business, sometimes what can happen, and I've seen this a lot with other people that are doing the same thing as me, is that motivation might fade a little bit and they might start feeling overwhelmed rather than and I always found myself, if I found myself doing that, a way to sort of ground myself again was just to bring it back to gratefulness and just being grateful that everything I'm doing is moving me in the direction to where I want to go and towards like my vision of where I see myself going long term.
Yeah, it's that's the second kind of second theme, is just this theme of gratitude. I think it's easy to compare ourselves to other people,
Especially nowadays.
And like we both work, or we're both working towards industries that a lot of it is driven by, or perceived value is driven by engagement in terms of followers, in terms of just the perception that we put out there on social media. But yeah, it's a great reminder of our value comes from the people that we are put in our kind of our orbit to help.
Exactly.
And allowing that orbit to kind of grow organically, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, like allowing something to sort of come to you and not necessarily feeling like you have to go out and chase it. And that's another thing that happened for me, or that sort of the light bulb that went off in my mind when I moved away, because I wasn't here, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that feeling of having to go out and get it doesn't really give me anxiety like it used to.
Yeah.
And sort of taking the long-term approach and being patient really tends to pay dividends. And this goes for like training. You know, we can tie it back to our philosophy at Alliance Athletics, a long-term approach, but you can relate it to just life in general and what you're doing. But when you really have patience and you allow things to manifest, there's just a lot less pressure that you put on yourself and a lot less stress in the long term.
Are there things that you do kind of every day in terms of habits, small or big?
They definitely are. Like I go through periods of time. I'm honestly not a big habitual person, like in terms of like I have like a routine that I follow every day. But I'll do things to give me sort of a cue to get me started, or a sort of launching point. So I'll do things where, for example, now the past 30, 40 days, like the last month, I've been waking up a little bit earlier than I normally do and just doing a little bit of meditation. My good friend Darcy Koss got me on this.
Yeah.
He's been doing 60 days of 60 minutes, which is,
jeez,
it's pretty
That's
intense.
incredible.
And you definitely work through some pretty intense thoughts when you're just sitting there by yourself. So I haven't quite gotten to that level. I did a couple of days where I went close to an hour, and it was pretty eye opening. But I find like as I did it more, you know, part of it is just a time thing, but also part of it is like I found myself being able to sort of get into that state of relaxation and calmness a lot quicker. So I tend to try and aim towards between 10 and 20 minutes. And I found that really like sets me up for my day. So I tend to use like habits like that to sort of launch me into give me momentum to sort of take throughout my day. I've done just a period of time where I did like 50 pull-ups every day. And I got that from you.
Yeah, I was about to say, who started that one?
Yeah. So you got me on the 50 push-ups per day, and I wanted to do 50 pull-ups per day. I really wanted to improve my grip strength and my pulling, balance out my shoulders. Um, but what I really found interesting with that is like when you have a habit that you always do every day, it becomes easier and easier to complete that habit. But then once you've completed it, every other to-do thing on your to-do list now is a lot easier to
Mm.
achieve, because you've sort of given yourself that little boost of not motivation, but you've gotten
Accomplishment,
that, yeah, you've gotten that
momentum.
train moving, momentum, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
the one thing that like the so 50 push-ups for 50 days. My buddy Tonio in Belgium put a challenge out. I took it and brought it to Winnipeg, and we had a few people doing it. And then Matt took it to pull-ups. One thing that I thought it was great was at the time I was trying to get back into better shape, and I thought like I can no matter what happened in that day, I can get 50 push-ups done. Like it takes
Exactly.
maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe some days less, some days more. And like if I couldn't do something for 2 minutes of my day, it clearly was not that important to me.
Hmm.
Um, so finding these small challenges and like what's the lowest bar possible for me to do something every day that I would actually do every day, because most of the time you won't stop at just that.
Exactly. Yeah, and like, it goes, you can segue that into just like life and business in
Mm.
general. So I find with myself, a lot of the work that I do at Alliance and just the coaching of all the members and clients that we have, it is remote, and so I do it through my phone, through my laptop, and so I can essentially do it from anywhere. But then what happens is because you can do it anywhere, you feel the need to do it all the time because you can. So sometimes it's a struggle to balance that, and what I find is sort of um, gaining some momentum where I go into, if I look and I see, oh, there's 25 workouts I got completed today and I got to go through all of them. Instead of saying that to yourself, just say, well, I'm going to do 25% of them, right? And that then all of a sudden now that mountain in your mind that you got to climb became a lot smaller. And then what I found is I found myself just completing the full amount anyways, because I got that momentum going.
Yeah, and I think even in working out, I was talking to my roommate Carter about this, and it's crazy how like the brain, you trick yourself into saying, okay, I'm gonna do 10 pull-ups, and you do 10, and like the 10th pull-up is really tough. But if I would have told myself I'm gonna do 15 pull-ups, that's probably wouldn't have set in until the 14th or 15th pull-up.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had a situation where like you'll be putting weights on a bar or something or whatever, and you actually put on too much, and you're doing the set, and you're like, huh, like this is a little bit tough, but you go through it anyways, and then you realize like, oh snap, I did like 20% more weight than I normally
Yeah, yeah,
do,
yeah.
right? So yeah, it's interesting like the minds or the tricks your mind can play on
Well, when you lift as little weight as I do, it's pretty noticeable when I don't put the right amount of weight on the bar. So
you.
my last question was just about and I've asked this a few times, just what roles mentors have played in your life. Like I said, obviously we're very much peers, but I view you as someone who's a few years down the road from where I am. Are there people like that in your life, in your kind of the success that you've had up to this point?
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I've had a couple. I had one mentor, who his name is Ben Patrick,
Mm.
and he really sort of uh, got me moving in that direction to sort of help me get to where I am now. And so I actually met him playing 3-on-3 basketball overseas in Slovenia, and I was playing basketball with Darcy Koss
Yeah.
actually, and so we were there, and he said to me, one of the first things he said to me when I met him in the hotel was, "Oh, you got to meet this guy from the U.S. He's you from the States. He's a couple of years ahead of you, obviously, but
Yeah.
just the similarities are there." And so I ended up chopping it up with him, meeting him, getting his contact info, and I met him at a time where he's one of the most successful online coaches around
Yeah.
nowadays. He has thousands of members on his online platform, and
Yeah.
he's really built the life that he really wants. and works remotely and has really just opened up his life. So seeing him succeed and also talking to him as he was going through that process just really put things into perspective for me on how much time I have to put into things. It gave me somebody that I could ask questions to so that I could not cut corners, but eliminate mistakes.
Yep.
And so he was really instrumental in helping me sort of find my purpose, but also just teaching me sort of the training principles that I value extremely high, because they're so hard to find in the industry nowadays. So I learned a lot from him, and he really honestly shaped my life and my lifestyle right now.
And one thing I love about Ben, who's, if you guys don't know, it's knees over toes guy as his kind of moniker on social medias. There's two things. One is he's a very much embodiment of the abundance mindset. Like, he gives away so much of his stuff, and again, he's empowering coaches like yourself who are taking what he's built, obviously making it your own. But again, that's another example of, like, he's not keeping that information for himself. And then secondly, he's just unapologetically himself. Like, he is probably the most self-assured and I think he's authentic in that, but like, he's the most, he is authentic to the core. And
that's great. And that's why he attracts people to, he's providing leadership the best way that he knows how. And I really like what you said about the abundance mindset. Like, that's one thing that he really helped me sort of shift in my mind. Before I went away and before I went overseas, I was really stuck in the rat race of the training industry in Winnipeg. And I really wanted to get outside of that and really have an abundance mindset, and, not talk crap about other trainers, but actually, focus on just giving stuff away and providing value to people. And it really, one moment that really, I think can emphasize this or show this was one of the first times I was really talking to Ben on the phone. He told me that if I wanted to, I could copy and paste his entire website onto my own and sell it for the same price, and he would support me in doing it. And how many people who have a thriving product would do something like that, right? So that really just like opened up my mind. And the interesting thing is, when you do that, is people now, even if I wanted to rip him off, now I didn't, right? So learning his material and learning his principles was a segue into continued learning for me, and to make that programming my own. It wasn't a situation where I was like, oh, thank God, like, I'm just gonna copy everything and then regurgitate it to everyone else and make this money, right? But what it actually was is just, I was so grateful because he was willing to teach and help me, and then that segued into wanting to seek out more mentors and wanting to seek out more people to learn from, and really expand the scope of what I wanted to do in the training industry and just in life in general.
The mentors that I've had, obviously a guy like Drew Hanlon, a guy like Mike Dunn, who's a shooting coach that I spoke to the other day. In a lot of ways, like, I can't provide the value back to them that is like for what they've done for me, like in terms of the worth that they've given, which made me realize, like, the way that I provide value back to them is to pass along that value to more people.
Yeah, exactly. And even just you following their lead in a way is going to push them to be even better. And so kind of what you said about how, you look at me as someone who's maybe a year or two ahead, because I am a couple of years older, and a little bit further along in that journey. I have definitely felt at times that you have pushed me, because you have seen, or you're out there, being accountable, right? You're out there chasing your dreams and chasing what you want to do. And, even if you might think, oh, like you might be following me. Well, in a way, you're also pushing me forward by doing that. So I think, like, as a mentee, that's one of the best things you can do, is just like follow that lead and really try and take it a step further. And like you said, give it to even more people and expand that scope or that voice.
Well, these are conversations that we've had for hours in the past, and we're going to continue to have in the past. And we're at the time that I kind of like to wrap these things up. So again, a ton of appreciation there, Matt. Where can people, like, I'll obviously post links, but do your 30-second spiel.
Definitely. So www.allianceathletics.com. You can sign up right there, get training within 5 minutes. Very simple and easy to do. You can find a lot of free resources. You can contact us through our Instagram page is at Alliance_athletics, or my own. I don't actually even remember my handle right now, but you can just search
Matt.Alliance,
me
I think.
Yeah, Matt.Alliance. So you can send me a DM. I answer all of them. And that's probably the easiest way to contact me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks
for everything, Matt. Like, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
And to more in the future.
Absolutely.